Hi guys, hope everybody's well where you're at. It's pretty cold here. We've not gotten any snow, which is disappointing. I can cope with the cold if there's snow. If there's no snow, I've kind of had enough. I'm a little frustrated because this is the third time I've tried this. The cats keep breaking into the kitchen. The latch on the door is gone, so if you hear meowing in the background, it's the little furry friends trying to break in and disrupt the video. So anyhow, today is rice. So many people have issues with rice, and it's so simple. If you follow some really simple steps when you're cooking your rice, it will turn out perfect no matter what type of rice you're cooking. So while we're talking about types of rice, let's have a look at a few types of rice. On the top from left to right, we have long grain, easy cook, and arborio. On the bottom, there's Basmati and a brown, red, and wild rice mix. So all of those rices are really simple to cook, but each different type of rice has a slightly different variance in what you need to do to make it perfect. So let's look at each rice individually, and we're also going to look at the difference between an ordinary rice and an easy cook rice. Now, easy cook rice can also be called parboiled rice. So let's have a look at those real quick before we start cooking our rice. So this is a really cheap long grain rice. You can see it's different colors, it's broken into bits. This is really going to affect how it cooks. The smaller bits are going to disintegrate and turn into mush. And generally, this type of really cheap rice winds up being really claggy and really horrible. I don't really use it because it's just not worth even the small amount of money. This, as you can see, is a really nice white basmati rice. There's very few broken grains. The color is really consistent. It cooks up beautifully and very consistently. This is the arborio rice. It looks a bit like little spelt grains. It's a very starchy rice. It's really similar to our pudding rice and our paella rice. You don't want to rinse this rice before you cook it. You want the starches to create that nice, sticky, creamy sauce that it makes. This is the brown, red, and wild rice mix. This particular rice, I would recommend soaking prior to cooking. It just makes it easier to cook and cuts the cooking time down in half. These are done when some of the husks have split. That's how you can tell that particular rice is finished cooking. Now, side by side, we have the easy cook rice, and that's the long grain rice there. As you can see, there's a distinct color difference. The easy cook rice is par cooked, which means it's boiled and then dried. So all the starches have been removed. It very rarely cooks up sticky. It's a really easy to cook rice. It usually only takes about 10 minutes. You can find these in boil-in bags. It's a pretty foolproof rice and really good for beginners, just so you don't mess it up. So I hope that clears up a little bit of confusion with rice. We're going to be cooking a mushroom basmati rice. Now you can flavor your rice any flavor you want it to be. All you have to do is make sure that that flavor is in the water that you're using to cook the rice. The rice absorbs water, so the flavor needs to be in that water. Otherwise, once you're finished cooking your rice, it's not going to absorb any more water. And if it does, it's going to turn to mush. So always flavor the water that you're cooking your rice in if you want to add flavor to your rice. So let's get cooking. So we're using basmati rice. It's important to remember that when you're cooking any kind of rice, that the measurement ratio of rice to water is by volume. So as long as you use the same container to measure your rice and water, you should be okay. In this particular one, I've added a mushroom bouillon cube to my water. I'm using half of a measuring cup of rice with a slightly over a whole measuring cup of water because I do want this rice to be slightly stickier. Bring your water to a boil and then put your rice in. Let it boil for about 3 to 5 minutes and then reduce the heat down, cover it, making sure that you do stir it occasionally. We don't want the rice to stick to the bottom of the pan and burn. Long grain and Basmati rice take about 15 minutes, slightly longer for the brown versions of those rice. Arborio, paella, and pudding rices take about 20 minutes. Your wild rice and brown rice mixes will take about 40 minutes, depending on if you've pre-soaked them or not. I would recommend soaking them overnight because then that just cuts the cooking time down in half. So once the water level has gotten to the point where it looks like your rice has nearly absorbed all of the water that's in the pot, give it another stir, take the heat off, and then put the lid back on. You want the rice to continue to steam itself in the pot, but you don't really want it to be on any more of a heat. By doing that, it reduces the chance of the rice splitting and dividing and becoming really, really mushy and claggy. Once it is sat and steamed for about 5 minutes, take a fork, give it a wee fluff, and you're ready to serve it out. So, as you can see, the rice is finished. Make sure you cool your rice if you're going to refrigerate it or freeze it. The easiest way to do that is just spread it out on a baking sheet, fluff it up, let it cool down as quickly as possible, and then portion it up, put it in the fridge or put it in the freezer. Once it's defrosted, you can go ahead and microwave it. I wouldn't recommend putting it back in water because it's just going to disintegrate and turn into mush. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have any concerns, put them in the comment sections below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. There will be an accompanied blog for this on the Discover Cooking webpage, which is discovercooking.co.uk. I'll put the recipe in there as well for this mushroom and rice, and that also will be in the comment section of the videos here. Remember, always put the flavor in the water of the rice that you're going to be cooking. It changes the whole rice picture. You will go from really horrible, boring rice to lovely, flavorful, beautiful addition to your meal rice. Now, next week, we're going to be cooking asparagus. There is a slight concern about asparagus, and a lot of people do cook it wrong to the point where the tops disintegrate and just become this horrible slimy mess. So next week, asparagus. I'll show you how to clean it, I'll show you how to trim it, and I'll show you how to cook it so it's lovely and crisp on the inside, bright green on the outside, and you won't have any problems. So look forward to speaking to you next week. Otherwise, see you later. Bye.